welcome. All right, Watchers, Nephilims, Anunnaki, and just really tall ass people. Okay, there's a thing in the Bible that says that there were giants in those days. And I made references to that. And again, I'm not a religious scholar by any stretch of the imagination. Uh, but I think that the tall gene, or whatever it might be, I remember seeing stuff on it, and I just can't remember for the life of me all the stuff I heard about it, what makes these people so tall. But there is a lot of unanswered stuff about our genetics that we don't know. And we do know at points in time in our history there was other hominids running around. And we also do know that many holy books refer to these gigantic people. Uh, and everywhere in the world, like every culture, every ancient culture makes references to some sort of a giant being. Now, are these space alien beings? I don't think so. I think these are just a different. There's something that these people have that other people don't. So really, you get some of these people. They're kind of disproportionate a bit. Like their torso's a little long, their legs are a little long. But then there's some of the people that they're actually proportionate. They're just tall. You know what I mean? Like they're just downright tall. It seems like there's a lot of really tall women in the Baltics. I can imagine there'd be a lot of tall people in the Baltics. This girl here, she's like, this is cute. She's like 15 years old. I forget what her height is. It's like close to 9 feet tall or something like that. Like I mean, that's pretty darn tall. Now, if we think about Europeans and stuff like that, say in the medieval times, the average height was like 4'8". 4'6", 4'8". So those people were short. Uh, and the reason why they know this is from medieval armor. They had guys like Henry V, for example. He was considered a gigantic man for his day. He was 6 foot something, and the reason why they know this again because of his surviving armor. And when you put him alongside just about any other knight, he was just a giant. He was just a big man. Like the armor, yeah, the armor will bulk you up, but you could tell just a man that would fit in that size of armor was a big man. Now, to today's standards, he'd be above average size, but not giant. But look at this story about David and Goliath. There's a lot of things, like Goliath was a Cyclops, and then he was a half-breed of a Nephilim and something else. And that was one of the things that they said that whenever the Nephilims, which are basically fallen angels in biblical times, whenever they would breed with women, regular human women, they would give offspring to giants. And maybe that's the way it was understood back then. But there was also, around 12,000 years ago, in certain regions in the world, particularly around Iraq and stuff like that, which the argument of where the birth, cradle of civilization lies, is it in Syria? Is it in Iraq? There's all these, and then of course there's, like the far, the far east of like Russia and stuff like that. So nobody really knows because there's always something new discovered here, there, everywhere. In Georgia, they discovered, like fossils of, kind of our very, very close ancestors. And these were the oldest bones found. And these people, they were little tiny hominid type people, but they were just the beginning of walking upright kind of people. They kind of had features like this, but they still had really big jaws, no chin, no forehead type of thing. Just a kind of a slant head eyebrow and a big goofy smile and then kind of wiry hair and stuff like that. So, and that was like one leap off of what we are now. But maybe that's what we were, and we bred with something else that we haven't yet discovered. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there of kind of, giants and stuff like that. She's like, the total opposite. I'm going to do one on small people too, and that. I had to put this dog in here. Great Danes. I love Great Danes, especially one that size. Who would think he's still a puppy? Isn't that adorable? Although he's like 7 feet tall. But anyway, whatever. But the point is that I had mentioned an island that was found in the South Pacific. I can't remember exactly where they found extremely, extremely small people, and it was due to the environment and stuff like that. They even found pygmy woolly mammoths and stuff like that. Like everything on this island was smaller, and it was discovered, I think, in the early 2000s or whatever. But what we haven't really found yet is the giants. We found giant type people, like really tall people in Asia, where there's these mummified. And also in Peru as well, where these mummified people that are like 6 feet tall, 6'6", 6'8", which is tall, and considering South American people are typically short. Can you imagine somebody 6'8" in South America? Of course, they're going to be referred to as a giant, in those days, because they're giants now. But what is a giant? Is a giant 30 feet tall? Are they 9 feet tall? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's all perception based, right? So I think a lot of stuff got written down as giants just because that was their term for extremely tall ass person, and to them they would have perceived people that tall as giants. Like it would just be, like there's some people when you meet there's some people that are tall and there's some people that are just big. And I'm not talking like overweight big. I'm talking they're just big. And I knew this girl years ago. I cannot, for the life of me, remember her name. She kind of looked a bit like Daryl Hannah, a bit, not quite, in the younger days. But she was a big, big person, very strong, very powerful. Like I'd watch this girl. She'd pick people up and she could like bench press them over her head. And it's not like she was trying hard to do it. Like she was just a big person. Properly proportioned, no spinal problems, no bad sight, no walking problems. This girl was a big person. No sight, no bad. Like some of these people that are really tall have a lot of problems, health problems. But this wasn't just somebody who's abnormally tall. This was just a big person, and big as in they were tall. They weren't fat. They weren't anything. They were just tall. Looked like you or I normal, but just a taller version. But very, very, very strong. I was like, we were always impressed how strong this girl was, and stuff like that. And she was just so big, like, I mean, nice person and everything, but it was just there was something different, and some of these people, like, because they're so big and stuff like that, maybe they have a lost gene from an ancestor that we don't know about. Because again, about 12,000 years ago in Iraq, they said there was certain areas that were more oxygen rich, and because it was more oxygen rich, the people sometimes tended to be taller. This is, like I say, in the Cretaceous period. I mean, you had, mosquitoes the size of hawks, and eagles. Caterpillars 30 feet long. Lightning strikes were like nukes going off because of the pure oxygen and stuff like that. Now, some people, like, like if we were given straight, clean, pure oxygen, like again, about 12 minutes after you got that, you'd giggle yourself into a coma type of thing. We need a little bit of a mixture. I think it's 95O2 and 5% carbon or something that we have to breathe. I can't remember the exact composition of what we have to breathe. But maybe the people that they inherit the genes from that we haven't quite discovered yet is from people from then. Because it's not like it's not an everyday occurrence that you get somebody that tall. So are these people walking around actually basically relations of the so-called Anunnaki, the Nephilims? It's an interesting thing, because to me it like when you look at them, it's like, okay, they if they were standing alone, you wouldn't be able to distinguish the height. You would probably say, oh, they're 5'9" or something like that. If there was nobody, but as soon as somebody's beside them, it's like, okay, then it's like they're proportionate, but they're not proportionate. You know what I mean? Like, well, they're proportionate, like arms, arms length and everything like that. But it's kind of like if they were standing beside everybody else who was the same kind of height, so to speak, you wouldn't be able to tell that they were all really tall. But as soon as maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but as soon as they're standing beside somebody, you realize just how tall they actually are. And big, like this guy here, he's just big. Like he's completely proportionate, but he's big. But if he were standing alone, you would think he was 5'8", maybe 5'9". You know what I mean? So some of them are kind of a little bit disproportionate from, hands, feet, legs, the torso to but most of them are pretty proportionate. And because of that, again, you got to wonder, okay, well, there's something else that makes these people really, really tall like that. They're big people. So to me, I mean, considering that most Europeans, or pretty much all Europeans, share Neanderthal DNA, who do these people share their DNA with? Have we not? Because they're it's hard to find legitimate things, but again, going back to the mummies that are like in Asia and stuff like that. Now they say there's kind of arguments over the red hair thing. They say because the pigment over time discolors, the people in Peru, the people in China, and it just, just the mummies, their hair just happens to turn red from oxidization type of thing. That they weren't actually red-headed. It's just that's the color their hair turned after, I guess so many years. So maybe there's some truth to that, maybe there's not. But on the other hand, there's references to the blue-eyed, red-haired giants, in South America and stuff like that. So it's hard to say exactly, maybe there was people walking around more commonly in those times that were really tall. Again, the David and Goliath story is a very kind of, pretty distinctive story. But how tall was Goliath? Was he, 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall? Again, to a person 5'9" or 5 feet. And again, you go over to the Middle East, the average person is probably 5'5", 5'6" or whatever over in the Middle East. They're fairly average. But some of the Middle Eastern places, some of the people are actually like India, for example. Some of the people tend to be a little bit shorter, like 5'1", 5'2". So you get somebody 7 feet tall beside somebody 5'1" or 5'2". That would be your giant. That would be your giant. So there were giants in those days. So that's what I'm thinking is what they were describing. But I mean, to see somebody that big back in those days would really put you kind of in that mindset that these people were some sort of a supernatural being. But if we go with the Bible, again, when Lucifer fell from grace, so to speak, he came in as a bright lightning and fell to the earth. And the thing about the Nephilims is, again, some of this, again, I'm a little off on some of the folklore and I'm a little off on some of the religious, but the gist of it is this. Basically, the angels were to protect man. And God told the angels that they were to bow down to man, that they were supposed to be, they were supposed to kind of worship man. They were supposed to be, their protectors, that type of thing. But some of the angels didn't like this because they felt they were superior, all that type of thing. And then of course the rebel angel, Lucifer, Satan. Satan means the adversary. Lucifer is translated, I think, from Hebrew into the morning star or morning star. So morning star, Satan, Lucifer, the devil. Pretty much, a lot of names. But his story is basically he was the rebel angel. He was supposed to be, beautiful, very, very beautiful. And he had people that wanted to follow him. They didn't want to bow down to man. They didn't want to bow down to an inferior creature. They didn't want to do that. So there was a fight in heaven. People got kind of kicked out of the house, so to speak. And but when they fell, when they fell, these basically they looked at because the terms of the angels, you have to understand, all the angels were male. There were no so-called female angels because they didn't reproduce. They didn't need to. But however, they were digging the earth chicks. They were saying these, they're a little bit tiny and petite, but oh boy, they get my feathers ruffling there. I mean, hey, just because they're angels doesn't mean they don't have a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, next thing you know, you've got angels breeding with human women, and then the offspring is giants. So the folklore says. So is it that's the actual folklore, or was there people that were just perceived to be these supernatural creatures, and that's what got written down in so many different things? And every time there was an abnormally tall person, the idea was that they, basically, were considered, offspring of the gods, so to speak. That's a very, very, very interesting kind of thing to think about, But it does seem like all cultures talk about this. They talk about some sort of gigantic people, and very impressive. Now, the other thing is that with all that going on, you have to understand too, there were prehistoric apes that were just gigantic. I can't remember the name of the ape. The largest ape that was ever found fossils of, and the thing was like gigantically big. The average gorilla now, if he stood up, upright, would be about, 6, 8 feet tall, maybe well, I don't think they'd be 8 feet tall, but they'd be pretty big, at least 6 feet tall. But this other ape was like 8, 9, 10, 12 feet tall. It was a really gigantic ape, which also there's other folklore about giant ape-like creatures. Well, you guessed it, Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you know. Now, with all these other folklores out there, well, are they really folklore? Well, think about it. Let's go back. Let's go back 240,000 years. Again, just because we haven't found anything yet doesn't mean it didn't happen that way. Maybe some of these people, again, in their DNA, maybe some of them bred with pre-modern man, or at the beginning, the dawn of man, so to speak. Maybe they, their DNA tracks back to these giant, a spin-off giant ape or a spin-off giant Neanderthal type person. Maybe, we don't know. We don't know. Just because we haven't found them yet doesn't mean. Again, look at the oh crap, I can never say it. The Desovians. The Desovians. I'm sure I'm not saying it right, but you know who I'm talking about. So you had Neanderthals, and then in 2010 we knew about Neanderthals forever, right? But the Desovians, we've only discovered them in 2010, and then of course in 2010 there was that other discovery of the I think it was Homo habilis. I can't remember which one. Maybe I'm sure someone's sitting there laughing. You don't even know you're. I know. But anyway, the point is these really, really big people. They're kind of like giants today. It's just we don't call them giants. We just call them really tall people. Um, so it's hard to say exactly where these people came from and what what makes them so tall. Like I know there's like again, I remember seeing some scientific shows on why these people are so tall, what gene it is and stuff like that. But where did that gene come from? What made these people so tall? Again, many people around them are eating the same diet, living in the same and the thing is because of that, you can't say it's solely due to the environment, right? These people are they're different, you know. So yeah, I guess when we look at it like that, it really does open up some questions to where what are who these people genetically relate, like what are they related to, what did they breed with a giraffe? I don't know. I mean anything's possible. But with that said, like I mean, there's a difference between somebody being abnormally tall and then there's big people, like people that are just you know that they're not just stretched out a bit. They're these are just giant people, and then of course you have on the other flip side of it, you have, short people. So if people can be extremely small and people can be extremely tall, there's got to be, something that's different to make this happen. It's not something that I think that's just going to happen sporadically just for no reason. There's, everything has a logic, everything has a reason. And I think that when we discover that, what we might find is that, again, going back to our DNA and stuff like that, back when, at a time when we came on the scene about 240,000 years ago, there was tons of little hominids running around that, that we've discovered. And there was at least 5 or 7 different species of man at that, or humans at, at that time, Neanderthals, Desovians, and stuff like that. So we're discovering that at some point there was a whole bunch of hominids that lived at the same time, including us. So that probably means there was probably a whole bunch of others that we haven't discovered yet. And I think, again, every time I looked at all the, like the giant Nephilim pictures and stuff like that, they're all hoax, the ones I've seen. I haven't seen any that are legit. The ones with the 30-foot tall, skeletons and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that's impossible. I mean, look how big dinosaurs were. You know what I mean? They were, massively large, right? Look at the Sarcosuchus, the world's largest crocodile. That thing was massive. And look at crocodiles now, just a smaller version. So things do change, things do change. But yet these two, the Sarcosuchus and the modern crocodile are genetically identical. Like they're related very, very, very closely. Even more so than, let's say, like dogs and wolves. Like, I mean, it's just, this is a smaller version of. And again, talking about that island with the pygmy woolly mammoths on it, basically, quarter-sized woolly mammoths, but yet genetically they're a woolly mammoth. So it's kind of weird that, is it just the environment that made that difference? I don't know. Maybe. It's another avenue to explore. So again, I don't think, and the problem I find with a lot of scientists is that they set things in stone because it's like, well, this is what we discovered. It's absolute fact. Well, everything is an absolute fact until it isn't. Until something new comes along. So right now, maybe what we know, we'll say, okay, well, it's this, that, and the other thing, and this is why they're so tall, and this is why they're such big people. And then something will come along and say, oh, wait a minute. And again, we're they may have mapped the human genome, but there's a lot of stuff in there that we don't know what it is. Like it's from other hominids and stuff like that that we haven't discovered yet, and we may never. We may never know exactly what until we can unlock exactly how a gene functions and says, okay, well, this would tell you that it came from an exactly this type of species of whatever. And I mean, heck, some of the things that these tall people, maybe the genetics is from something not human whatsoever. I mean, we are related to, say, like things like pigs, for example. Humans and pigs have, you know, surprisingly similar DNA, and prehistorically, we were basically pond scum, and then we became like a fish type of thing. Then we became like a prehistoric pig, basically, and that's pretty much where we came from. So just because we looked like something at one point in time in history, um, you know, evolution doesn't necessarily move in a straight line, so to speak. It can move around. So for the people that I think evolution versus creation versus whatever you want to argument you want to make, I think there's possibilities on all sides. I don't rule out. I would have I don't have enough faith to be an atheist or anything like that, because it's like I couldn't close my mind to say that, okay, just because we haven't discovered it yet, it can't be possible. I couldn't, I couldn't do that. In fact, like for me, and I mean, if that's what if you're an atheist, that's up to you. I'm not trying to convince you of it. But the only thing I do is try to get people to think. When there's something different. I mean, I just get more curious, than anything, and it's kind of like, what can we answer on this? What can't we answer? It's not the stuff we can answer. It's the stuff we can't answer that really fascinates me. But when you go back to it, at some point, again, how did people thousands of years ago all talk about the same thing roughly at the same time, just about everywhere in the world? But between 2 to 4,000 years ago, every book talks about these kind of beings, these gigantic beings. So that means they had to be well spread out everywhere, that people knew what they were looking at, or maybe not exactly what these people were, but they had to know. There had to be enough of them out there to, if they made it into books. You have to understand, 2,000 years ago, there weren't a lot of books written. The publishers of the day, they just weren't very efficient. You know what I mean? Pretty much every book was an original copy. That was it. I'm sure some people, duplicated whatever, but you get the idea. The stories would have been passed down probably 1,000 years to 2,000 years before writing. The first records of writing goes back, 40,000 years ago. They believe they discovered writing in Africa, or a form of it. There's also, they believe, in Spain, the caves in Spain where they got all the cave paintings and drawings. They believe there's forms of writing in there. So it's hard to say, where the first writing came from, where the first of anything came from. But you do know that stories were told, and those stories had to be from people's experience. So how they, yeah, no, I'll be up there in a second. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going to cut this one short. So anyway, yeah, have yourselves a great day. There we go. G'day, hey, hi, and welcome. All right, Watchers, Nephilims, Anunnaki, and just really tall ass people. Okay, there's a thing in the Bible that says that there were giants in those days. And I made references to that. And again, I'm not a religious scholar by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that the tall gene, or whatever it might be, I remember seeing stuff on it, and I just can't remember for the life of me all the stuff I heard about it. What makes these people so tall? But there is a lot of unanswered stuff about our genetics that we don't know. And we do know at points in time in our history there was other hominids running around. And we also do know that many holy books refer to these gigantic people, uh, and everywhere in the world, like every culture, every ancient culture makes references to some sort of a giant being. Now, are these space alien beings? I don't think so. I think these are just a different. There's something that these people have that other people don't. So really, you get some of these people. They're kind of disproportionate a bit. Like their torso's a little long, their legs are a little long. But then there's some of the people that they're actually proportionate. They're just tall. You know what I mean? Like they're just downright tall. It seems like there's a lot of really tall women in the Baltics. And I can imagine there would be a lot of tall people in the Baltics. This girl here, she's like, this is cute. She's like 15 years old. I forget what her height is. It's like close to 9 feet tall or something like that. Like I mean, that's pretty darn tall. Now, if we think about Europeans and stuff like that, say in the medieval times, the average height was like 4'8". 4'6", 4'8". So those people were short. Uh, and the reason why they know this is from medieval armor. They had guys like Henry V, for example. He was considered a gigantic man for his day. He was 6 foot something, and the reason why they know this again because of his surviving armor. And when you put him alongside just about any other knight, he was just a giant. He was just a big man. Like the armor, yeah, the armor will bulk you up, but you could tell just a man that would fit in that size of armor was a big man. Now, to today's standards, he'd be above average size, but not giant. But look at the story about David and Goliath. There's a lot of things, like Goliath was a Cyclops, and then he was a half-breed of a Nephilim and something else. And that was one of the things that they said that whenever the Nephilims, which are basically fallen angels in biblical times, whenever they would breed with women, regular human women, they would give offspring to giants. And maybe that's the way it was understood back then. But there was also around 12,000 years ago, um, in certain regions in the world, particularly around Iraq and stuff like that, which the argument of where the birth, cradle of civilization lies, is it in Syria? Is it in Iraq? There's all these, and then of course there's, like the far east of like Russia and stuff like that. So nobody really knows because there's always something new discovered here, there, everywhere. In Georgia, they discovered, like fossils of, kind of our very, very